I am an American soldier.
I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place this first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined.
Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I am an expert and I am a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
There's strong, and there's Army strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for point of view.
All right, how y'all doing out there tonight? Okay, is it me, or has the world just gone completely off its rocker? stayed that way and shows no signs of coming back to center? I mean, really? Really? All this chaos in the world has just gone beyond the pale. It just seems to be something I can't quite wrap my head around some of the time. Because every time I turn around, there is chaos. And I'm not talking just a little bit of chaos. I'm talking on grand scale. Okay, I mean just absolutely insane scale. And it's just hard sometimes to figure out where it's all going. And I really sometimes want to sort it out, and other times I'm just like, somebody just sort this out for me. But that's part of why I started my show. And you know I do miss you guys when you're not talking with me. And of course, show prep. Of course I've got my show prep. I can't live under a rock and do this show. And I'll be in the chat room in just a minute. So I'm just doing a little typing, so you have to pardon me. Who's had time to do anything all day? Come on. I've been up to my eyeballs, folks. You have no idea all the things I've been up to, and I usually am not gonna tell ya. Nope. Sorry. Just ain't happening. So, what has been going on in the world? Well, there's been a lot. We're not the only country that's had a school shooting. We're not the only, and no, there wasn't one here in the U.S. that I picked up on anyway. Didn't see anything flying on social media about it. I'll bring it up only because there was one in another country. Where? I'll get to it. Keep your head screwed on straight. And tomorrow, the album comes out that I can't wait to get. In fact, why don't we play the promo for that album right now?
Hey, this is John Preston, Marine Combat Veteran and Pacific Records recording artist. Just reaching out to have you check out our new album, Battle Cry, Songs of America's Heroes, an album featuring phenomenal other combat veteran artists like Scott Brown of the Scooter Brown Band, Ryan Weaver, Rowdy Johnson, just an incredible mix of people. This is all veterans telling our stories and our lives, and we're giving 100% of our proceeds to the Valkyrie Initiative to help veterans and first responders integrate back into society. I myself myself have battled with post-traumatic stress for many years and lost my own brother, a Marine Corps veteran, to suicide. I ask that you step with us and make this happen. We are in pre-order right now and release on March 17th. Go to iTunes, go to Amazon, buy. We plan on making the charts and making it at a very high level, and your support right now makes a difference. This is the release of my new song, Superman Falls, which is actually about the loss of my own brother, which happened last year, and I would love for everyone to check it out, to listen. Hopefully it'll make a difference in many lives.
All right, so now you heard about the album that's coming up tomorrow. Trust me, I'll be getting it. But you didn't think I'm going to support the guy I interviewed? He's amazing! What makes you think I'm not going to support him? I love his music. In fact, if you listen to my interview, which you can find under Jessie's POV, you know that not only do I support him, I actually already had not one, but all three of his albums from iTunes before I interviewed him. Because, well, for those of you who don't know, I love the military stuff and or the patriotic music. I'm all about listening to music that supports the warrior, tells the warrior's story. So, I think that's the best kind of music. So, what can I say? What can I say? Moving right along. There's been a lot happening in the world. I know I say that every day. I know I do. But it seems to be true every day. What can I say? There always seems to be a lot of things going on in the world. I mean, you've got the stuff in Mosul. You've got all kinds of chaos going on. So, and not to mention all the stuff that's going on in the DOD. What? You haven't heard about the scandal at the Marine Corps? How could you not hear about the scandal at the Marine Corps? And then, of course, there's stuff going on in Gaza, the Ukraine. What can I say? Then, of course, there's North Korea. What would my day be without North Korea and China and the South China Sea? My days would be pretty boring, I think. Not sure I'd have as much to talk about. Alright, a North Korean hacking group known as Lazarus was likely behind a recent cyber campaign targeting organizations in, wait for it, 31 countries, following high-profile attacks on Bangladesh banks, Sony, and South Korean cyber firm Symantec. What, you didn't know Symantec was South Korean? Wake up. Symantec said in a blog that researchers have uncovered 4 pieces of digital evidence suggesting that it was the Lazarus Group behind the campaign that sought to infect victims with loader software used to stage attacks by installing other malicious programs. The North Korean government, could have wrote this one for him, has denied all allegations untangled the tongue. The North Korean government has denied all allegations it was involved in the attacks. So, the U.S. Bureau of Investigations, of course, did not comment. The FBI ain't talking. Symantec did not identify targeted organizations and said it did not know if any money had been stolen. Nevertheless, Symantec said the claim was significant because the group used a more sophisticated approach than before. Oh yeah, even the bad guys keep learning. What can I say? They're not going to stop learning, folks. They want to learn. We don't necessarily want them to learn, but they want to learn. They want to learn so they can do it better next time. And that is the way the world works. I mean, really. And then, of course, North Korea is frazzled because, well, full Eagle exercises are going on. And they got a whole lot of U.S. troops stationed right on their borders. Now, they normally have some, but not as many. Not as many as this time. And of course it's been rumored, which of course the Pentagon has denied, that SEAL Team 6 is participating. Now, SWIFT, the interbank messaging network, which is the backbone of international finance, said it planned to cut off the remaining North Korean banks still connected to its systems as concerns about the country's nuclear program continue. Way to go, SWIFT. I'm sorry, but they do not need... They need to be obliterated. They really do. And this, in fact, is what I'd like to do to North Korea. Oh yeah. I'd like to blow them out of the water. Now, I don't want to harm the people. I just think the government needs to take a long walk off a short plank. What can I say? So, what else has happened that you may not have heard? Well, Nikki Haley spoke at the UN. I do not have the audio. And Tillerson says diplomacy with North Korea has failed. Pyongyang is saying could be war. No offense, I almost hope they'd do it and get over it. Because I'm tired of hearing them saber rattle every 10 minutes. The Trump administration made a clear break on Thursday with diplomatic efforts to talk North Korea out of a nuclear confrontation, bringing the United States and its Asian allies closer to a military response than any point in more than a decade. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said that 20 years of trying to persuade North Korea to abandon its nuclear program had failed, and he is visiting ages to exchange views on a new approach. Soon after Tillerson's remarks, a sign of mounting tensions, the North Korean embassy held an extraordinary news conference in Beijing to blame the potential for nuclear war on the United States while vowing that its homegrown nuclear testing program will continue. In self-defense, of course. I'm sorry, you don't need nukes to defend your country. North Korea has amassed a sizable nuclear stockpile and appears at the brink of being able to strike the U.S. mainland and American allies in Asia. The rising threat from the isolated military dictatorship, it's not called the Hermit Kingdom for nothing, folks, has prompted the Trump administration to begin assessing its options for how to respond and serves as an early test for how the president will confront an increasing volatile international situation. One potential immediate response would be to strengthen existing South Korean missile capabilities or to provide Japan with new offensive missile capability. The Japanese defense chief told Parliament this month he would not rule out first strike capability, which would be a major departure from Japanese post-war pacifist traditions. Of course, the United States is deploying that to South Korea, and one option would be to deploy the same missile defense system in Japan. Or take the potentially provocative step of reinstalling nuclear weapons at U.S. bases in South Korea. The North Korean threat could also rekindle the largely dormant idea of a domestic U.S. missile defense system. North Korea is boasted of an intercontinental ballistic missile. That is an ICBM, folks. And experts on Asia security generally agree that such a capability is within Pyongyang's reach. Preventing it outright would probably require a military strike on North Korean facilities. Now, this is something that the U.S. has always considered an option of last resort because it would result in an attack on South Korea and U.S. forces stationed there, perhaps with chemical or biological weapons. Now, reminder, for those of you living under a rock, how many of my listeners live under rocks? Hope not many of you. Not a very comfy place to live, what can I say? So, for my listeners living under rocks, reminder, Kim Jong-nam was murdered using VX. So, yes, what is VX? One of the most lethal chemical weapons ever. If you remember, he didn't even make it out the door to the hospital. Yes. All right. So he didn't even make it to the hospital. He died en route. This stuff acts fast. I've done a little research into VX. And that stuff's mean. Oh yeah, that stuff is definitely mean. What's that, Host Kitty? Yeah, Host Kitty doesn't like the sound of the VX either. If you don't know what it is, Google it. It's just 2 letters. VX. Do some reading. Don't want you to stay awake at night, but you gotta know how ugly that stuff is. And very few people survive exposure. Alright, I think that's enough about North Korea. And we kind of covered South Korea. I mean, we know they've got their upcoming presidential elections. However, you know, they could be inching towards nuclear war. We've discussed that. And we don't know. Literally, it's going to depend on what the lunatic in the North decides to do. And as a reminder, the USS Carl Vinson is over there participating in Eagle Foal exercises. Kim Jong-un is irrational, unpredictable at the best of times. He appears trigger-happy, reveling in his ability to make Western powers squirm. In February, of course, they launched an intermediate-range ballistic missile superior to anything that had been launched before. And then, of course, a few days later, Kim Jong-nam was murdered at Kuala Lumpur Airport in Malaysia. And, of course, that attack was intended to strike terror into the hearts of exiled opponents of the Kim regime. And Interpol has issued warrants for the arrest of 4 North Koreans in connection with the murder. However, some of these 4 North Koreans are believed to be safely back in Pyongyang. For the first time being, the U.S. military response is decisive, bringing forward the long-planned installation of THAAD. In other words, they didn't wait. It happened. They said, get THAAD on a plane and get it there. Now, of course, China, North Korea's big brother, can't forget them, views every U.S. military deployment in its hemisphere as an attempt to thwart its ambitions for regional dominance. But, unfortunately, China's the only one that really talks to Pyongyang, so we kind of got to play at least a little nice with them. But, of course, they're not playing nice, are they? No, they are not. South China Sea is a main problem again. What? You didn't know it was a problem before. All right. Let's give a quick recap on the South China Sea. China claims there is a whole bunch of water that belongs to it. And Thailand, Vietnam, and some of the other countries in the area said, no, part of that's ours, now shoot. And China went, tough luck. So China decided to play the biggest real-life game of Minecraft I've ever seen, and they terraformed islands out of nothing. Man-made islands, oh yes, 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 which they proceeded to militarize after they said they weren't going to do it. They said, no, they're peaceful. And then, of course, they proceed to do just that. They've got missile silos and landing strips and all kinds of fun military stuff cropping up every day on their Minecrafted islands. So what they did was they did dredging operations. They pulled stuff off the bottom of the ocean and piled it up and made an island. Then they took that man-made island and built buildings on it and structures. Oh yeah, they have not been playing nice, folks. Now why should we play nice to them? Well, A, they're huge. B, they do have quite a large army. Alright, folks, it's that time. It is time for the bottom of the hour commercial break. And just to remind you, this is the chorus of Superman Falls, off the album that is coming out tomorrow.
Hey, this is John Preston, Marine Combat Veteran and Pacific Records recording artist. Just reaching out to have you check out our new album, Battle Cry, Songs of America's Heroes, an album featuring phenomenal other combat veteran artists like Scott Brown of the Scooter Brown Band, Ryan Weaver, Rowdy Johnson, just an incredible mix of people. This is all veterans telling our stories and our lives, and we're giving 100% of our proceeds to the Valkyrie Initiative to help veterans and first responders integrate back into society. I myself myself have battled with post-traumatic stress for many years and lost my own brother, a Marine Corps veteran, to suicide. I ask that you step with us and make this happen. We are in pre-order right now and release on March 17th. Go to iTunes, go to Amazon, buy. We plan on making the charts and making it at a very high level, and your support right now makes a difference. This is the release of my new song, Superman Falls, which is actually about the loss of my own brother, which happened last year, and I would love for everyone to check it out, to listen, and hopefully it'll make a difference in many lives.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
I just love that chorus, and you know I've already ordered my album. How about you? Have you not ordered that album? Will you get on over to Amazon and iTunes and get it? It is well worth it. And just in case you missed the information, that promo for that album by John Preston will be played at least one more time on this show. No, not right now. Now, let's turn our attention to Mosul. U.S.-led coalition forces are approaching the mosque. What mosque? Oh yeah, the mosque where the caliphate was declared. Which, that would be a huge blow to this suicidal death cult we call Dash on this program. And for those of you who are regular listeners, you know that Dash is just the Middle Eastern acronym for ISIS, and they happen to hate it. So your host is going to use it every time she gets a chance. What can I say, folks? If it annoys them, so much the better. Alright, so they are approaching the mosque where the caliphate was declared, where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi said, "Nope, we are the spokesperson for all Muslim people." Well, as you know, I'm a wide and varied person, and while I was having an online conversation the other night with a Muslim friend who will remain anonymous, and Mr. Muslim friend, we're just going to call him Muhammad. Why not? Gotta have a name. So Muhammad and I were chatting. Now, this went on for hours. He doesn't like Dash any more than your host does. And he is a practicing Muslim. He thinks they are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And he says there is nothing right about suicide bombings or taking of innocent life. I just found all that very fascinating. Now I'm trying to get him to come on the air. So, any of you that want me to try and encourage Muhammad to join me on air, send me an email at Jessie's POV at KLRNRadio, or hit me up on Twitter at Jessie's POV, of course. Where else would you find me? Oh yeah. And I am, of course, as usual, all alone in the chat room, because Ron hasn't gotten on yet tonight, and the rest of you are all scrambling to get kids in bed and get dinner on the table and all that fun stuff. One of these days, I'm willing to bet. One of these days I'll have some friends in the chat room. Oh yeah. Never know. Never know. So, anyway, let's see what else is going on. So the Iraqi government forces besieged Dash's militants around Mosul's old city, edging closer to the historic mosque. The militants are holed up in houses and darting through alleyways, resisting with sniper fire, suicide attacks, and car bombs. Thankfully, a lot of those Mad Max type vehicles, they've been kaboomed from the sky. Oh yeah. They met their fate early. Premature detonation. Courtesy of the United States Air Force and or the Unmanned Drone Program. Dash hit back with sporadic attacks on government positions, including mortar fire. Suicide bombers had driven explosive rig cars at troops. Government forces responded with mortars, helicopter gunships, and strafed the militant positions from above. Police said they'd killed 9 militants who tried to counterattack one of their positions with an RPG. Federal police drones bombed dozens of fixed and mobile Dash targets on the perimeter of the Grand Mosque. Now, this is tough going because these streets are narrow and it's hard to get, you can't really get an armored vehicle down there. And that definitely leaves your soldiers vulnerable to enemy fire. Now, there's also a need to ensure the safety of civilians, many of them hungry and traumatized from living under Dash's harsh rule. As we know, the United Nations is trying to help out with that. The enemy has started to set fires to houses, which means they are on the retreat. They have destroyed homes and have destroyed families. Mosul has served as Dash's de facto capital As they imposed rule over the area they had seized, the cities recaptured by the government would drive the remnants of Daesh into the hinterlands. Go, Iraqi army, go. Yes, I want you to keep up the good job you are doing. And just as remember, I gotta play my favorite audio clip again. You've heard it a few times, but you're gonna hear it again.
The enemy is completely surrounded in West Mosul, and those who do not surrender to the Iraqi security forces will be killed there.
Oh yeah, surrender or die. Some of the civilians are trying to get into eastern Mosul to stay with relatives. And sources say Major General Durgham said the retaking of the city was not yet imminent. I will not tell you 1 or 2 weeks because that's not true, but within 1 or 2 months it will be completely liberated. Now, as you know, I do feel for the civilians. I well and truly do. They are trapped. Now, just as a reminder, let's pull out our Syria scorecard here, folks. Well, Syria Middle East scorecard. Who's propping up Syria? The Russians. Who's friendly with the Russians? None other than Iran. Iran and North Korea trade missile technology. What about Russia and Turkey? Some days I think they're enemies, some days I think they're friends, so I classify them as frenemies. They cooperate where they see it's helpful, and quarrel where it's not. Now, that brings us to Turkey. And for those of you who live under a rock, you will know that we do use a Turkish airbase to launch attacks against Daesh. We have been for some time. We've used this base many times over and over. And I'm sure we'd like to continue using this base. However, Turkey's is about to take another step towards dictatorship. Now remember, Turkey was trying to vie to become part of the EU. The European Union. So they abolished their death penalty and were playing all nice for a while. I think Erdogan's canned that thought and said, skip this. I'm going to run my country how I want to. And if you don't like it, tough luck. Alright. Turkish voters find themselves confronting an even broader system of state-orchestrated pressure and coercion as they prepare to go to the polls. There is about 58 million voters who will take part in a constitutional referendum proposed by President Erdogan, though the referendum will have all the appearance of democratic legitimacy. The reality could not be more different. Oh no, there's not real democracy. It's what I call paper democracy. Looks good on paper. Remember, they don't have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and all that there. They got some of our freedoms, but not most of them. Alright, so. At issue is a sweeping program of constitutional changes that, if passed, will establish a new form of autocracy. With Erdogan at the top, Parliament gave its approval to the referendum this year, albeit by the narrowest of majorities, with only 9 more votes than were needed for the required 2/3 majority. Now, of course, this was in response to the coup that happened last summer. Well, it was a coup attempt because it wasn't successful, or Erdogan wouldn't still be president of Turkey. If the referendum passes, the office of Prime Minister will be abolished. The number of representatives in a newly powerless National Assembly will increase from 550 to 600. It's a cynical bit of democratic window dressing, I assure you. In a stark break with the Republican principles of the past, which dictated the head of state should remain politically neutral, the president will be permitted to retain direct ties to a political party. In Erdogan's case, the ruling Justice and Development Party, which first brought him to power in 2003. The referendum will give the president the power to appoint and remove ministers and exert even greater control over the judiciary than he does now. In other words, he can be a one-man band, folks. The parliament will lose its ability to scrutinize ministers or initiate a vote of confidence in the government. In short, if the referendum passes, the Islamist Erdogan will secure his iron grip over Turkey for the foreseeable future. The secular democratic of Turkey will start down the path to a religiously inclined presidential dictatorship. Oh yeah, dictatorship, as in rule with iron fist. No room for error, no wiggle room. Oh yeah. And that's not cool, folks. The authorities have suspended or fired hundreds of thousands of civil servants, military officers, university administrators, school teachers, and even bank employees since the attempted coup. There is no apparent recourse for those career-ending decrees, no possibility of appeal. The Erdogan government has used the failed coup attempt as a pretext not only to attack and purge its erstwhile partners and collaborators in the Gulen movement, founded by influential cleric Fethullah Gulen, who is now living in none other than Pennsylvania. So, 2/3 of all journalists in Turkey. Turkey now accounts for 1/3 of all journalists imprisoned around the world. How's that for you for freedom of press? That is just outright wrong. I'm sorry, there is no point for imprisoning journalists, but this is what Erdogan, I think, is doing. As he imprisons all the press, because then there's no one there to call him out. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, facing a re-election in the fall, is vulnerable to any resurgence of refugee flows into Europe. So, how is this Turkey affecting her? Well, any surge in refugee flows into Europe, particularly Germany, could destabilize her government and cause her to fail in her re-election attempt. Alright, Erdogan has been able to crack down with impunity on Turkish political institutions, civil society, and academia, partly because European leaders, unable to face their own demons of racism, Islamophobia, human rights violations, and sheer egotism, concluded with an agreement that Turkey early last year to staunch the flow of Syrian refugees across the Aegean Sea. The agreement likely contradicts the 1951 Refugee Convention, since Turkey can hardly be considered a quote-unquote safe third country as required by international norms governing the rights of asylum seekers. Nevertheless, even in the face of protests by Amnesty International and Doctors Without Borders, this agreement was presented as a panacea for the migrant crisis. Can Turkey's path to dictatorship be stopped? I don't think so. So, I have a feeling we're going to have a new dictatorship in this world. Alright, I mentioned a school shooting in another country at the top of the show. Well, that shooting happened in France. Yes, croissant-loving, peaceful, happy France. A French teenager opened fire at his high school in southeastern France on Thursday, wounding up to 4 people in an attack. The incident in Grasse does not appear to be linked to the militancy. It comes with France on high alert after more than 230 people were killed in the past 2 years by terrorism. France's education minister, Najat Malcolm visited the scene in Grass, a town known for, of all things, the perfume industry, and said the attack appeared to be by a crazy, fragile young man fascinated by firearms. Now, he was apparently inspired by videos of the United States mass shootings such as Columbine. YouTube strikes. With presidential elections less than 6 weeks away, the attack by a 16-year-old armed with a shotgun loaded with lead pellets looked likely to further stoke France's debate on security. Now, for those of you who don't know, France has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. French citizens are banned from owning automatic weapons, while many other guns require government authorization, a medical exam, along with a permit from a hunting or sport shooting federation. And socialist presidential candidate Benoit Hamon told reporters this is remnant of the Columbine tragedy in 1999, where 2 students fatally shot a teacher and 12 classmates before killing themselves. So, even with the strictest of strict gun laws, as I've said many times before, they will find a way to get a weapon. And this case proves it because the attacker had instructions for homemade weapons. So, they don't have to buy them, folks, especially in the age of 3D printing. You can make them. Now, a little bit more on Syria. Syria is going, UN, help, 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 help. This is after they've kicked the UN out, bombed Red Crescent or Red Cross relief convoys, and many other dastardly deeds. Oh yes, Syria's government urged the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to demand that a U.S.-led military campaign against Daesh stop targeting the Euphrates and Tishreen dams and surrounding areas to forestall a looming catastrophe. In a letter to Guterres and the Security Council released on Thursday, Syria's Deputy UN Ambassador Manzur wrote that the residents along the Euphrates River in Iraq could also be affected by the systematic sabotage of infrastructure. The total destruction of these dams are being targeted by airstrikes will wash away and flood cities, towns, and villages, endangering the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in the area. International Coalition and Pentagon said they were not immediately available for comment. However, the U.S. coalition has been carrying out airstrikes in Syria against Daesh since 2014. And I believe I gave you some of those numbers last night. Let me see if I've got the audio clip handy. So, because it is important to know that we are there. Let me see what I can find here. Alright, I believe this has the numbers I'm looking for, so let's take a quick listen.
Syrian Democratic Forces and their Syrian Arab Coalition continue operations to isolate Raqqa along 2 axes east of the city. Our partners have rolled back ISIS territorial gains to the east, north, and west of the city, capturing more than 7,400 square kilometers of territory. To support our partners' operations, the coalition has conducted airstrikes which have destroyed more than 130 enemy armored and soft-skinned vehicles, 57 vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, and more than 450 enemy fighting positions, enabling the momentum of the campaign to continue.
All right, so the U.S. has been bombing them, but I promise you that the U.S. is not going to target a dam just to target a dam. And that is the fact. The U.S. military has better things to do with their time and resources than to target a dam. Now remember, I'm always saying that North Korea's big brother is China. Well, China is trying to make new friends and trade partners. Oh, yes. So, and who are they trying to make deals with? Well, the world's largest exporter of oil, Saudi Arabia. The deals include, Saudi Arabia's King Salman oversaw the signing of deals worth as much as $65 billion on the first day of a visit to Beijing. As the world's largest oil exporter looks to cement ties with the world's second largest economy. The deals include a memorandum of understanding between giant state oil firm Aramco and China North Industries Group Norinco to look into building and refining and chemical plants in China. Saudi-based Industries Corp and Sinopec, which already jointly run a chemical complex in Tianjin, also agreed to develop petrochemical products in both China and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's octogenarian monarch, who has overseen the launch of an ambitious economic reform plan since his ascension 2 years ago, is on a month-long Asian tour, so I'm sure we will have some more interesting news as that goes on. Alright, folks, I'm about out of time. So, I think I've got one story I really wanted to get to. Let me take a look. There was one. Let me just see if I can find it really quick. Yes, the one I put off from last night. Alright, here it is. Authorities in Poland moved quickly to issue an arrest warrant for a Minnesota man accused of participating in a World War II massacre, just 2 days after determining they had enough evidence to charge him. But many steps remain before 98-year-old Michael Karkok would ever face charges overseas. His family has said he has dementia, but legal experts say health problems are a defense against extradition under U.S. law. Alright, Karkok is accused of commanding a unit in the Nazi SS-led Ukrainian Self-Defense Legion that raided the eastern Poland village of Chlawno in July 1944, killing 44 people, including women and children. Polish prosecutors' decision to seek his extradition came 4 years after the Associated Press published a story establishing that he commanded the unit based on wartime documents, testimony from other members of the unit, and his own Ukrainian language memoir. The story also established he lied to American immigration officials to get into the United States. And he did that just a few years after the war. A second report uncovered evidence that Karkok himself ordered his men to attack the village. His family, of course, has consistently said he was innocent of any war crimes, challenging the validity of the evidence against him and depicting him as a Ukrainian freedom fighter who fought against the Germans. Now, how do extraditions work? All right. In order to secure an extradition, the government of Poland is going to have to provide a probable cause that this individual committed crimes charged. That's the battleground in the extradition case. Age and health are not defenses. I have every expectation this man is going to be found extraditable. Before that happens, Krakow's attorneys could urge his health counts as a special circumstance that provides grounds for bail. But it's much harder to get bail in an extradition proceeding than a criminal case. Karkok could appeal if the magistrate rules he should be sent to Poland. Semmelin said he knows of cases where the process has taken up to 2 years. German prosecutors shelved their own war crimes investigations of Karkok in 2015 after concluding he was not fit for trial. Karkok's attorney refused to allow a medical expert from Germany to assess his ability to be questioned and stand trial, according to Munich prosecutors, but instead provided documentation from his American doctors. And Munich prosecutors called the assessment comprehensive. The German probe began after AP's story in 2013. The evidence was assessed by German Special Federal Prosecutors Unit that investigates Nazi-era crimes, which concluded there was enough for Munich state prosecutors to pursue murder charges. In 2014, the Federal Court of Justice said Kharkov's service in the SS-led unit made him the holder of a German office that gave Germany the legal right to prosecute him, even though he is not German. His alleged crimes were against non-Germans. They were not committed on German soil. Now, of course, this isn't the only German war crimes case that has been in the news that has ever been. One of the highest profile cases involved retired Ohio auto worker John Demanjuk. He died in a German nursing home in 2012 at age 91 while appealing his conviction there for being an accessory to 2,060 murders while a guard at the Sobibor death camp. The Ukrainian boy Demanjuk spent most of his 18-month trial in Munich lying in a special bed brought into the courtroom. Demanjuk fought for 35 years to clear his name after he was first accused of being a notoriously brutal guard at the Treblinka extermination camp. The guard was known as Ivan the Terrible. He was extradited from the United States to Israel in the 1980s, tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. But of course, the Israeli Supreme Court overturned the verdict and returned him to the U.S. in 1993 after it received evidence that Ivan the Terrible was actually another Ukrainian guard. So, who knows what's going on there, folks? Alright, I am officially out of time. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Jessie's POV. You can drop me a line at the station at Jessie's POV at KLRNRadio.com. And on that note, folks, oh yeah, I'm out of here!
Hey, this is John Preston, Marine Combat Veteran and Pacific Records recording artist. Just reaching out to have you check out our new album, Battle Cry, Songs of America's Heroes, an album featuring phenomenal other combat veteran artists like Scott Brown of the Scooter Brown Band, Ryan Weaver, Rowdy Johnson, just an incredible mix of people. This is all veterans telling our stories and our lives, and we're giving 100% of our proceeds to the Valkyrie Initiative to help veterans and first responders integrate back into society. I myself have battled with post-traumatic stress for many years and lost my own brother, a Marine Corps veteran, to suicide. I ask that you step with us and make this happen. We are in pre-order right now and release on March 17th. Go to iTunes, go to Amazon, buy. We plan on making the charts and making it at a very high level, and your support right now makes a difference. This is the release of my new song, Superman Falls, which is actually about the loss of my own brother, which happened last year, and I would love for everyone to check it out, to listen, and hopefully it'll make a difference in many lives.